Well, it is a Monday, the last day of the long holiday, May 24th, Victoria Day weekend. I want to say, Ryan, that some areas of the province may have had cooler weather than they'd hoped.
Yeah, specifically in the evening. I know Friday night on the Avalon got down to -1 without that wind chill, and Saturday night might not have been warm, a little bit warmer. And then we did have that a little bit warmer evening on Sunday. So it kind of got a little bit better as we went on in the evening, but the days were lovely. We had scenes like this out in the Eastport Causeway. Plenty of tire on the road province-wide this long weekend, no doubt. Thanks to Amber for sending that one in. Now, the next two I did show last night, but I know the Sunday of a long weekend, a lot of people maybe catching up tonight for the first time. So this was just the range of the beauty, honestly. So yes, some cool temperatures in the evening, but lots of people heading out to Twillingate, including JC there and her pooch Cooper, seeing the bergs float down there. We'll talk about that northern wind that is going to keep moving those along a little bit later, but some northern lights in Pistolet Bay sent in by Aaron. We thank you for that. So from the sea to the sky, there were scenes worth taking in our province, Labrador and the island of Newfoundland as well. Here's a new one for you. Check this out. Mama Owl in Musgrave Harbor. Kathy Butcher found this owl hanging around the shed and continuously and wondering why. As she took a little closer look underneath, check it out, some baby owls. That's my first time seeing baby owls. I wasn't sure what to expect, but cute, maybe. But the whoo knit you, I must say. We're going to celebrate the small wins, and I enjoy that one. So let's take a quick look outside here now at the current. We can see some cloud coming over St. John's. Still a little bit of blue there in Grand Falls, Windsor. A mix of both in Corner Brook. Salmon Air Line, once again, plenty of cars passing through there. But you see some damp roads as the promised rain late this afternoon for parts of the Avalon did come through, and we're not quite done with it yet. So let's dive in, and we'll start in Corner Brook, because last night we talked about the on-again, off-again showers in the afternoon for Corner Brook. As you go through the morning through to the afternoon, it appears those are pretty dry roads, hey? So nothing really falling there, although you do see maybe a little bit there at the end. But that leads me to this, where we can see finally those on-again, off-again showers lightly passing through Corner Brook. But it's the strong winds that we're seeing partially from the north. We're seeing some from the east as well, breaking apart this system right now. And we're going to see half of that push into Port aux Basques, the other half come over Burin and into the Avalon this evening. So the rain not quite done yet for St. John's. We have a little bit more to recycle through this evening, and we'll get into that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at those temperatures and really those wind lines that you can see coming from the east. And we're going to see those come a little bit further down from the north with a bit of a western tilt at times as well. And we'll talk about what that will do. But for now, is making Badger sit at 10 degrees, 8 in Port aux Basques, 10 in Burgeo again, just 5 in St. Anthony. They got St. John's beat where it's 4, 3 down in Cape Race. Up into Labrador, it's 8 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, 2 degrees Nain into Makovic. That doubles up into Cartwright for 4 degrees in the current. Now the wind, let's talk about it. So you can see just a breath through St. John's, 19 clicks, 63 though down in Cape Race. You can see it picks up into 48 in St. Lawrence. Over in Stephenville, it's gusting 39, 35 in Corner Brook, and 48 up in St. Anthony, 37 in Gander, but not much to talk about through Twillingate. Now, a little bit later, we'll show you how the wind's going to come from the north and keep Bonavista and St. John's a little bit cooler than some other areas further in, like in Central and on the West Coast as the week goes on. You can see Tuesday, 6 a.m., that wind taking that turn that we mentioned, picking up 33 in Bonavista, just 22 at that point in St. John's, a little bit more in Trepassey. Down to the Grand Bank area, will be closer to St. Pierre's, 51, 44 through Port aux Basques. We push through that morning there, get into the afternoon, and we're going to see that really stick around that 30-click mark for St. John's and into Trepassey and Bonavista as well. It picks up in Twillingate to 43, but really where the wind picks up, we're going to circle is St. Anthony coming in at 70, all the while up into Labrador, ranging anywhere from about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour through to Tuesday afternoon. And this is what it's going to do with those wind chills. Tonight it's going to feel like -1 in St. John's and in Bonavista, holding in Gander though, but you can see that wind chill affecting St. Anthony as well, similar to Makovic up in Labrador. As we push through a little bit further, we can see through the overnight and into 8 a.m. Monday morning, it's going to feel like -2 in St. John's, Bonavista, across to Gander and up into St. Anthony. Hold feeling like 2 degrees in Corner Brook, and you'll see some wind chills flip and flop up in Labrador through to the afternoon. But it'll take until 2 p.m. for St. John's to feel above zero. Now this rain, as we can see, continued to build specifically in the southern portion of the Avalon as we hit the overnight early Tuesday morning. So we'll get the totals the next time in the 6 o'clock hour when we get together. But it's going to be a little bit more in the southern portion of the Avalon and a whole lot of cloud there Tuesday to talk about, as well as some brief moments of some drizzle. So that's what Tuesday is looking like, a little bit of drizzle island-wide, and we'll see what happens up in Labrador the next time we get together as well there. Tony Marie?
All right. Thanks so much, Ryan. And it is time.
Lots of positivity to recap over that long weekend, but we do have some rain to get through this evening into tomorrow. Full details coming up.
Not a bad weekend for the Victoria Day long weekend. Today, not so nice, though.
Not so nice, I guess. And even, the long weekend, we did have some nice-ish looking weather,
Yes.
but it was cold.
The sun was out. Yeah, windy.
It was pretty cold. And, Ryan, I'm sure you saw it. I saw some interviews on the NTV Sunday Evening News Hour last night, some people being interviewed at the parks. And they said, boy, was it cold. It was really cold in the nighttime. I think one person even said there was frost or something on her tent when she got up in the morning. So it was a pretty cold weekend.
Yeah, Friday night got down there for sure, temperature-wise. It rebounded fairly well. Listen, we've had worse. Hey, May 2-4 weekends, no snow, and we'll take that every year. But we do have some rain to get through. And you can see here, we talked about it last night, a couple of the totals. We'll get to those in a moment, what we were anticipating throughout today, where the majority of the rain was going to be held along the southern portion of the island. Up in Labrador, it's Labrador City, where we have some precipitation rolling through, and we'll recap that in just a moment. But it's the winds that are coming down from the north, meeting winds from the east that broke this system apart and currently is doing so, where we're seeing half sent over into Port aux Basques, the other half pushed along into the Avalon, but all anchored at one point around the Burin Peninsula. If we take a look at the totals, we can see today close to 8 millimeters in St. Lawrence, a little bit less as you go up the boot there, 5.1 in Argentia. And we can see very similar in Burgeo compared to St. Lawrence as well. We talked about 5 to 10 millimeters when it was all said and done for Trepassey and Branch, and it looks like with what's left to fall, we'll reach that. And then this afternoon, we were looking for about a millimeter in St. John, so we got close to that as well. We might be able to double that up this evening. But it was Corner Brook where they stayed out of those on-again, off-again showers, which we were anticipating, but you saw it on the radar a moment ago. Could see those on-again, off-again showers just pushed a little bit later into the evening there now. We can take a look at Corner Brook where we can see, nothing falling there yet, nor in Grand Falls, Windsor. And you can see some damp roads there in St. John's if you really take a look. And that just talks about what we just saw roll through the Salmoneer line as well, as it looks like there's clouds going through with a little bit of dampness on those roads. So let's talk about the weekend that was. You can see through your eyes from the sea. It was absolutely gorgeous in some areas in terms of, the conditions. At Bayview there does look a little bit chilly, doesn't it? I think if you zoom in there, everyone there wearing the winter coats. But Joe Bat's Arm, plenty to see in that neck of the woods. And I know a lot of people in the province did make that their destination for the long weekend. As we move along up into the sky, you can see in Ship Harbor, that's gorgeous, honestly, the stars that you can see there. And then in Glovertown, we saw it in the St. Anthony area as well, those northern lights dancing across at times in the evening. So in terms of the visuals, the province flexed its muscles for sure at times. Now, this is going to be more indicative of what we're seeing as the week goes on. Cloud coverage, and we can see that in Rocky Harbor, sent in by Dar there. So thank you so much for that photo. It is the photo of the day, and you'll see a lot of cloud on the 5-day forecast once we get there. But for now, let's take a look at both Labrador and the island portion of the province. You can see those winds coming from the north. That's going to really limit the temperatures in that 5-day forecast that we see on the northern portion of the island, specifically into St. Anthony, Bonavista, and St. John's compared to the southern portion. Labrador, we mentioned Labrador City. Looks like a mix of both finishing up there this evening. We talked last night how the temperature was probably going to allow for just snow at this time, but as we look there now, we can see that there is a line, and it looks like to be the mixture of that wet snow. Now, we see a little bit more rain, as we talked about, kind of spreading out over the south coast, pushing into Port aux Basques and across the Avalon as well. So there's still a little bit left to fall for St. John's. As we push a little bit further, we can see by 5 a.m. tomorrow, basically just cloud for Labrador as that system moves along, following the streams that we see there. At 5 a.m., we see some rain on the Burin Peninsula. We'll see that pass over the southern shore as well. And then those green dots tell me that while we're pretty well covered in cloud over the island, there's going to be different areas that have the chance to see both some fog and some drizzle. So Tuesday does look like RDF. There are likely to be some points on the west coast where that sun breaks through. We'll see that in the 3 and the 5-day forecast a little bit later as well. But we're pretty well all in it together in terms of the conditions, both in Labrador and in Newfoundland there by 1 p.m. on Tuesday. I think there's about a 40 to 60% chance of some light precipitation at times for Happy Valley Goose Bay. And like the island portion, we could see some day breaks in there where the sun does shine shine through momentarily. And at 8 p.m. Tuesday, we're going to start to see some rain form in Mary's Harbor, and they're looking at about 1 millimeter of rain, and then that's going to transition into a mix of both by the time we get into Wednesday morning. So about 1 centimeter of snow to finish up there as well. And we can follow those lines, and that's going to help us track Wednesday into the northern peninsula as well, because what we see in Mary's Harbor is going to show up in St. Anthony as well. And it's interesting because not too far offshore, we do see a stream coming up from the south. So all the system that we do have missing the island, you can see it right here actually very well, is going to be pushed up, cooled down, and recycled. And that's what's forming that snow on that portion of the south coast of Labrador and bringing it down into St. Anthony. So we'll track that over the next few days. We'll get those details and some numbers for you the next time we get together. In terms of the temperatures, yeah, for the Avalon, it ain't going to do it, is it? 2 degrees for St. John's this evening. And then as we push through into tomorrow morning, it'll be -1. We'll get to the wind chills in a bit because it ain't going to feel like -1. 3 degrees in St. Anthony and in Corner Brook. A little bit warmer down in Port aux Basques. We'll feel that in Burgeo at 5 degrees as well. All the while 1, 4, and 2. Churchill Falls, Happy Valley, Goose Bay into Cartwright. We push into Tuesday afternoon. We can see St. John's nearing the daytime high, 4 degrees. I believe we get to 5 there. 4 in St. Anthony, 6 in Port aux Choix, 7 in Corner Brook. And Labrador and Newfoundland pretty well on an even playing field in terms of those temperatures. And it's those winds that are going to bring those temperatures down to feeling like -1 at times for St. John's. Now, just 30 kilometers per hour. Wind picks up a little bit in Trepassey, even more so in the Burin Peninsula. But at St. Anthony, where we're looking, once we get through this evening and into tomorrow, that wind's going to pick up to about 70 kilometers per hour by Tuesday morning. And that's going to make their +3 feel more like -2. Again, we'll dive a little bit closer into these regions, bring you some of those final totals and those feel-like temperatures the next time we get together. Michael, Tony Marie.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Hello, Newfoundland and Labrador. Let's check across the country. See how our friends and family are doing. 12 degrees in Calgary, sun and clouds. 16, Fort McMurray. A little bit of sun poking through the clouds there. That's matched in Winnipeg as well. A bit of rain through parts of Saskatchewan. And we see in Thunder Bay, 11 degrees, sun and cloud there. In Toronto, it's 13 degrees in Toronto. You know, they say with maturity comes restraint, so we'll leave that there. 13 degrees, sun and cloud in Toronto, and 11 in Montreal. A little extra cloud through Montreal. For the Atlantic regions, we see 12 in Charlottetown, 13 in Halifax. Yarmouth, I said it before, home of the Mariners, 9 degrees there. Sydney, 5 degrees, kitty corner to Port aux Basques, which is at 9 degrees now, matched in Corner Brook. 4 in St. Anthony, 8 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 2 degrees in Nain, and Labrador City, allowing for that wet snow, 0 degrees. Still holding on to 12 in Gander. Not bad, Gander. Drop that in half. You get most of the Burin Peninsula there at 6, and St. John's, 4 degrees. Now, let's take a look at the 5-day forecast. A whole lot of cloud. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a little bit of RDF in there as well. And 6s across the board temperature-wise. That rain returns on Saturday. Early outlook, looking at about 10 millimeters there. 2 to 1 degree in the overnight. Cloud for the south coast as well. 12 degrees topped on Tuesday. We see some precipitation Friday and Saturday. As we move over to central, Friday, we're going to get a little bit of temperature bounce up there. 16 degrees, but not before. The chance of some flurries Thursday in the evening and overnight as it drops down to -2. That rain returning on Saturday. For the west coast, a little extra sun to be had. Looks like mostly cloud for Tuesday and Wednesday, but some breaks for that sun to shine through, getting up to 14 on Friday. And we can see in the northern peninsula a little mix of both into Wednesday. We'll talk about that in a moment. The sun shines through on Friday pretty nicely, though, but some minus temperatures in the evening. South coast of Labrador, sun and cloud. A little extra cloud on the Tuesday before that sun breaks through Wednesday through to Saturday. And up in the northern portion, we see very similar. Cloud on Tuesday, but it opens up, and a whole lot of sun on the Saturday at 8 degrees. But again, some minus temperatures in the evening. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, a little bit of rain to get through Tuesday. 40 to 60% shot throughout the day really there, but some sunshine as well. And that sun lasts all the way through to Saturday with 17 degrees on Friday. We'll take that, hey? Labrador West, you can see the sun on Saturday. That's what you're looking ahead to, but some pretty decent temperatures there as well. We'll talk about the temperature difference on the East Coast compared to Western Labrador in just a moment, but you can see Wednesday evening does get down to -1. And minus is what we're going to talk about here now with the wind chill. We have some north wind coming down. It's affecting really St. Anthony, Bonavista, and St. John's, and at times Gander there as well. 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, feeling like -3, -2 degrees, 0 Port aux Choix, but we're feeling like +2 in Corner Brook. And you can see in the eastern portion, very similar to the west. We'll see if that continues as we push through Tuesday morning into the afternoon. It does up in Labrador. -1 in Cartwright across into Labrador City as well. And then we can see -1 in Bonavista, and there's our chance in St. John's to feel like a positive temperature, +1, a little warmer on the southern shore there. We see some winds coming from the east. east compared to those coming from the north in the capital city. All the while, 7 in Burgeo, 9 in Port aux Basques. So a decent afternoon there, just that cloud to get through. And then into the evening, we're going to get back in around that -1-0 mark for St. John's, -3 Bonavista, -1 in St. Anthony. While you see the west get above that 0 mark, while the east of Labrador still feeling like it's in the minuses. So we can see that bit of mix of rain and snow pushing out Labrador City. By 11 p.m. it's pretty well out the other side. We can see that strong wind coming from the north on the eastern portion of Labrador, and a whole lot of cloud in between this evening, which is going to lead into Tuesday as well. We can see that rain finishing up on the south coast of Newfoundland, passing through Burin and the Avalon as well. But up in Labrador, we can see that rain does return lightly for Cartwright and Makkovik area, just at different times. 10 a.m. on Tuesday, and we can see some light flurries in and around Churchill Falls. That's not going to amount to anything there. As that pushes on, we see the rain then in Cartwright by 2 p.m. Tuesday, and eventually it'll all get into Mary's Harbor, but it is light and it is brief. We're talking about 1 millimeter of rain there, but that does push down into St. Anthony. Now, as we hit the island portion of the province, I mentioned RDF. Here is the F portion of that. The fog is going to be there Tuesday morning, island-wide pretty well. And then for the northern portion of the island, that's just going to stick around through the morning and into the afternoon. Bonavista there in the thick of it at the noon hour. We can see it in Twillingate as well. A bit of it hanging around the St. John's area. So if you're up hiking Signal Hill, you'll likely see some fog and have some cooler temperatures up there into the afternoon. You'll see some in Buckens at 3 p.m. as well. And it just kind of lingers. And that's the way Tuesday is going to be in terms of the fog. In terms of the rain, we can see this evening finishing off in St. John's. It's a system that's battling those winds coming from the different directions. That's what has it spread out across the south coast of the island. And we can see it build in different areas. St. Albans there in the overnight, as well as Trepassey and into Branch. St. Shots could see some rain as well. Maybe another 5 millimeters on the high end to add there in terms of the rain. And all the while in St. John's, it's about a 40 to 60% chance of some drizzle, and at worst some light rain passing through there as well. We could double that 0.8 millimeters that we saw this afternoon through the overnight. Tuesday morning, there's all that cloud that we're seeing. There's a break there in Port aux Basques by 9 a.m. We're likely to see a few of those in Stephenville and Corner Brook area as well. Pretty well, Grand Falls, Windsor, Gander into Bonavista, Clarenville down to Burin. We're looking at a 40 to 60% chance of some drizzle mixed in with that cloud coverage and fog throughout your Tuesday. I mentioned it the last time we got together, but a bit of a south wind at times coming up offshore there. That's going to recycle the systems that we see offshore and push it back down St. Anthony. And then we can see overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, and then parts in Wednesday, we see that mix of rain and potential for some flurry activity in St. Anthony closer to that supper time hour on Wednesday. Well, we'll wrap things up here. We mentioned that rain, the system that's offshore, circling back and recycling down the northern peninsula. So if you're spending your Tuesday offshore, you're going to see a little bit of that rain tomorrow morning. And the totals kind of match what we're seeing on land as well. 3 and 4 degrees throughout the day there. We see a high tide at 2 p.m., low tide just after 9. The wave height's going to be anywhere from 1.8 to 2.4 meters, 10 seconds between those crests. And the wind, not too bad, 25 clicks coming from the northeast. And back on land, we can see the next 3 days looking like this. So we're going to lose a little bit of the temperatures in the north, central, and eastern portions of the island, but we'll get back into the double digits for the southern and west coast there. And we see double digits in western Labrador and Happy Valley Goose Bay, but like the island there, we're losing that temperature on the north and the east. So a bit of precipitation you can see on your map considerably on Thursday and Wednesday for the northern peninsula, and we'll dive in and get through that together tomorrow. You've got me all week, actually, so we'll go day by day, one day at a time, and we'll chat about what is on the horizon. Michael, Tony Marie Wiseman.
All right, thanks so much, Ryan, and thanks to all of you for joining.